friends. How are you? I would just like to make a quick video of a book that I read and a blog post that I made. So this is part of my book reviews, and it's one of my favorite books. It's a book called We by Russian author Yevgeny Zamyatin. And I'll just go ahead and read. You can either just listen or you can click on the link and read my blog post. So I start out with a quote by Yevgeny Zamyatin that I really like. He said, quote, "Children are the only bold philosophers, and bold philosophers are invariably children. Exactly just like children, we must always ask, and what next?" Unquote. Which 1921 Russian novel directly inspired Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, George Orwell's 1984, Ayn Rand's Anthem, and Kurt Vonnegut's Player Piano? If you guessed Yevgeny Zamyatin's We, then you are correct. In fact, Zamyatin may be considered one of the fathers of dystopian fiction. His own influence included Plato, Gogol, Dostoevsky, and Chekhov. For an excellent tribute to Zamyatin's We, please read Jacob Holland's November 2020 article in the New Criterion, 100 Years of We. Zamyatin was born in 1884 to a musician mother and a Russian Orthodox priest father. After a lonely childhood, Zamyatin was trained in naval engineering, but later turned to literature. He joined the Bolsheviks, and he was arrested in 1905. He spent months in solitary confinement in Siberia, but he managed to escape, making his way to St. Petersburg and then to Finland. He returned to Russia, but he was exiled again in 1911. He was pardoned for his political offenses in 1913, but he continued to write controversial stories and articles while working as an engineer for the Imperial Russian Navy. Zamyatin became the leader of a literary group called the Serapion Brethren, for whom he issued the credo that, quote, "True literature can exist only when it is created not by diligent and reliable officials, but by madmen, hermits, heretics, dreamers, rebels, and skeptics," unquote. His growing skepticism toward communism and Bolshevism eventually inspired him to write We, a trenchant satire of totalitarianism. A translator of We, Mira Ginsburg, notes that Zamyatin wrote this remarkably prophetic novel when the totalitarian future was just becoming discernible. Ginsburg praised his work thus, quote, "Poet, mocker, laughter," he wrote, "is the most devastating weapon. Heretical fighter for freedom and independence in art and in life, Zamyatin was a consistent enemy of all canonized ideas, all coercion, all the purveyors of a compulsory salvation. He mercilessly attacked and ridiculed the emerging totalitarianism, its fawning mediocrities, its reign of brutality, its violation and destruction of the free and creative human spirit. He foresaw it all: the terror, the betrayals, the dehumanization, the ubiquitous guardians, the control of thought and action, the constant brainwashing, which resulted either in unquestioning automatons or in hypocrites who lied for the sake of survival. The demand that everybody worship the benefactor with its huge hand that literally liquidates, reduces all who dissent, all who passionately want to be themselves to a puddle of clear water." In his novel We, Zamyatin portrays a mathematically rigid society that extinguishes emotion and imagination. The one state regulates daily life with the utmost precision. In this one state, the transparent glass houses are perfectly square. The protagonist D503, people are nameless numbers, describes his life and his surroundings with cold and calculating exactitude. Rousseauian savages roam freely outside the green wall that divides them from the robotic numbers who obediently submit themselves to the great benefactor. Throughout the novel, D503 busily works on the construction of a spacecraft called the Integral. The purpose of the ship is to send members of the one state on an expedition to subjugate the unknown beings on other planets who may still be living in the primitive state of freedom to the beneficent yoke of reason. Their mission is, in the name of the great benefactor, to bring them mathematically infallible happiness. "We have become as gods," D503 writes, "and we shall come to you. my unknown reader on the distant planet, to make your life as divinely rational and precise as ours. However, even as D503 begins his record, a record that he decides to call We, because it contains not just what he thinks, but what we think, he senses something new. Quote, I write this, and my cheeks are burning. This must be similar to what a woman feels when she first senses within herself the pulse of a new, still tiny, still blind little human being. It is I, and at the same time, not I. Unquote. D503 constantly fights off any thought or feeling that he believes may not be completely logical. He hates his own hairy hands. Numbers in the one state use a pink coupon to participate in scheduled sexual days, and each number has a right to any other number as to a sexual commodity. Enclosed in the green wall, the numbers are regulated by the figures of the table. But D503 confesses that there is a dilemma within the one state. I shall be entirely frank. Even if we have not found an absolute precise solution to the problem of happiness. Zamyatin's mockery of modern moral philosophy rings true. Quote, today, any 10-year-old will solve this mathematical moral problem in half a minute. They, with all their Kants taken together, couldn't solve it because it never occurred to any of the Kants to build a system of scientific ethics, i.e., ethics based on subtraction, addition, division, and multiplication. But D503 is serious. He is incapable of jokes. Why? Because every joke contains a lie as an implicit function. Music, poetry, art, and everything else put into the service of the one state, a society so advanced that they have forgotten about ancient things like bread or crimes or rights or religion. Only the ancients believed in tales about Adam and Eve, Abraham and Isaac, and the God of love. During a festival in honor of the one state, D503 records a memory. Quote, according to the descriptions that have come down to us, something similar was experienced by the ancients during their religious services. But they worship their own irrational, unknown God. We serve our rational and precisely known one. Their God gave them nothing except eternal, tormenting searching. Their God had not been able to think of anything more sensible than offering himself as a sacrifice for some incomprehensible reason. We, on the other hand, offer a sacrifice to our God, the one state, a calm, reasoned, sensible sacrifice. Yes, this was our solemn liturgy to the one state, a remembrance of the awesome time of trial, of the 200 years' war, a grandiose celebration of the victory of all over one, of the sum over the individual. In spite of his devotion to the one state, D503's mathematical shell begins to crack. I-330, a flirtatious and rebellious female who has joined the Mephi in a plot to destroy the one state, lures him to the ancient house outside of the Green Wall where the furry Rousseauian rebels live. D503 begins to develop an incurable sickness. At the medical office, the doctor informs him that his condition is grave. You're in a bad way. Apparently, you have developed a soul, unquote. Naturally, D503 does not understand. What is a soul, he wonders. In mathematical terminology, the doctors explain to him what a soul is, and nothing but surgery will do. Fortunately, D503 discovers that there is a remedy and that his developing soul must be excised in a great operation. The machine is reserved for rebels against the one state. But what of the heart? The heart is nothing but an ideal pump. Quote, compression, shrinkage, the sucking in of a fluid by a pump are technical absurdities. It is clear, then, how essentially preposterous, unnatural, and morbid are the loves, pities, and other nonsense that cause such compressions. Unquote. Although D503 finally submits to the great operation and proclaims that reason must prevail, because of I-330 and the Mephi, the survival of the one state is uncertain. Yevgeny Zamyatin's 1921 novel We shows that he discerned totalitarianism on the horizon. Might there be lessons in this novel for us today? Thanks for listening.